ladies, and we get started. We got two, and these are a little longer lessons than the last one was. And the first one is the law of giving. A little comedy entitled Gimme expressed the concept of life held by many people. Uselessly, they stand with outstretched hands to receive the goods of life which they think people, or they think themselves entitled, but without giving anything in return. These people are ignorant of the meaning of life. Observe nature in many forms of expression and you will see the law of giving in operation. The sun's rays carry warmth, light, and life. The clouds give up their moisture and the earth is refreshed. The birds carol their happiness. The trees provide shade and shelter. Vegetation feeds mankind. Giving is the life of all things. When something ceases to give, it ceases to live, to evolve, to develop, to progress. In essence, it has no purpose. And everything has to have purpose. He that saves his life shall lose it. This is not the threat of a God. It is a statement of universal law. And it is as operative among the natives of an African jungle as among the greatest scholars and scientists of our day. We heard the story of an inventor of many appliances. He is poor and for several years accepted the charity of a friend who paid for his meals, lodging, in order that the man might continue with his inventive work. He has many models ready to be patented, some of which would bring him large returns and make him a wealthy man, but he will not permit anyone to see his inventions, nor will he have any of them patented to allow anyone else to handle them on a percentage basis. He lives in poverty, accepting from his friends, holding tight to possessions which, if given to the world, would bless. But by refusing to give, he cuts off the channel of receiving. In fact, he is restricting and limiting his life, for life expresses in action. A wealthy landowner made a beautiful garden at the foot of a hill. In the center of the garden was a large pool fed from rivulets from the hills. An outlet on the lower side of the pool released the water which flowed over the pastures below. He went away for a time and upon his return found the pool covered with slime. He discovered that the outlet was stopped up so that no water could escape when the pool overflowed. When the pool ceased to give, it lost its beauty and became stagnant and unattractive. Too many people have the outlet of life closed. They receive, but refuse to give until there comes a time when they learn they no longer have the gifts they thought they possessed. So-called disease is often only the result of a dammed-up consciousness. The person who lives unto himself is a selfish individual, and selfishness tenses the nervous system, preventing the free passage of energy over the wires. This will, in time, cause discord in the physical body. I think we all have experienced that or know people who have gone through that. A woman refuses motherhood because she does not want to be bothered with children. She wants her life for herself. The years pass and she finds herself lonely and filled with yearnings which cannot be satisfied. In trying to save her life for herself, she has lost it. A great master put it graphically in his parable of the talents. Those who used their talents had them doubled, but the one who refused to use the one talent which was given him had it taken away from him and given to one who had 10. Everyone has at least one talent. Use your talent and it will be doubled. And that's why when I teach, I provide what I know and share what I know, and the universe provides. I have found that to be true. And it's an unselfish giving.
Some people think that you have to have some spectacular, like sing or dance or something, but everybody has talent.
Oh yeah, in one form or another. The crime is that you go through life and you don't recognize the talent that you have. Sometimes we receive letters from people who want our assistance. They tell us how helpless they are and how dependent they are on others, often deploring the fact that they are forced to accept aid from their friends and relatives. Because we desire to help them, We counsel them to forget themselves as much as possible and begin at once to do something for someone else. We know the chances are that they are receiving without there being any outlet from their own lives to others, and this condition is causing the greater part of their trouble. They must learn to give if they desire to continue to receive. Stagnation means death. If you don't give of your own soul, and you're always taking it, it's just not a fair exchange. Because at some point people will just say, you know, you're just taking and taking, but you're not giving anything back to anyone.
Well, doesn't there come a point when we have to say no for their better?
Well, yeah, and that's a judgment thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have somebody that is always asking for help, at some point, you know, you have to say, look, you know, I'd like to, but, you know, there's that old parable, that old saying that you give a man a fish, he has food for a day. You teach him how to fish, he has food for life. So, you know, I'll give you fish today, but then tomorrow I'll teach you how to fish. And then after that, it's up to you to feed yourself. Because I've known people who will they will milk everyone they know for everything they can get from them and not lift a finger to do anything for anyone else. And I'm a patient individual, but I have a limit to patience. Except when somebody has questions, and then I will go overboard. In operating the law of giving, in order to attain perfect results, there must be no thought of receiving, and that's what I was saying. You do because you choose to do so without any thought of getting anything back. That's true giving.
If you think about getting things back, it's not really giving.
No, it's just exchanging, is what it is. You're exchanging something you have for something that you expect to get from somebody else. And that usually leads to disappointment, because that's something that somebody else generally will just sort of, you know, get kind of vacant and just sort of hard to get a hold of. And the highest type mother is perhaps the best example of the perfect giver. She gives and gives and gives without a thought of receiving anything in return. She works hard that her children may have an education, have the same good clothing and environment as other children, so they need not feel ashamed or humiliated. She takes it all as a matter of course and does not even think she is doing anything at all praiseworthy or out of the ordinary. Whether or not her children ever repay her, this giving is her life. She is impelled by her great love to do what she does, and the doing is her reward. And you understand the difference between impelled and compelled. You know, the universe impels, it does not compel. It suggests, but it does not demand. So in the case of this mother, she's doing it because by her nature she feels impelled to do this. Not that she has to, but that's what she does. That's what she feels she needs to do. And there's nothing expected back.
But it does come back to you, believe me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In one form or another. You know, it's only that sometimes we may not recognize that we're getting something back out of it. If we really live, if we want to really live, we must give. The miser counts his coins and hides them away. He ekes out a miserable existence, shriveled, bent, and unhappy, and dies revered by none. He that saves his life shall lose it, said Jesus. Activity is expressed in giving, and life is activity. Cease to be active, and you cease to live. How many people do we know or we've encountered who are advanced in years and all they do is sit in front of a TV set? I mean, they camp out there. And the only thing that keeps them from getting bed sores on their tails is they have to get up and go to the refrigerator. A man lays up much treasure for himself and sets about to live a life of ease and luxury the rest of his days, contributing as little as possible to the life and activity of the world about him. What happens? Ceasing to express in normal activity in the world of which he is still a part, his subconscious mind turns its attention upon itself, producing undesirable conditions in his body and many times a disintegration of his mental faculties and a paralyzing of his spiritual powers. See, y'all are young, you get to be my age, that's what we focus on. Maintaining our spirituality and spreading that as best we can. The manna which led the children of Israel on their journey through the wilderness had to be gathered every day. They could not store it up and then rest while enjoying it. What they did not use each day decayed. Some people try to keep their health and retain their strength. They are careful not to work too hard and to do nothing that will overtax their strength. But do these people enjoy radiant health? Do they retain their youth and vigor? Health and strength are given to be used. If we do not use them energetically, we lose them. Not one person in 1,000 loses his health by overwork or by overtaxing his strength. If you want good health, do not sit down and expect it to come to you. Employ the strength you have in useful service, and as you require more strength for your task, it will be given you. And generally that holds pretty much true. And I sort of cling to the philosophic concept that we're never given any more than what we can deal with, one way or another. Who are the men of wealth? In the majority of cases, they are the men who have invested their money in some business or project and moved upward step by step, keeping their money working all the time. The man who fears his money is going to leave him unless he keeps it buried lives and dies in poverty, regardless of the amount of money he has. This is in no way an extenuation of the unfair methods that many rich men use in the accumulation of vast fortunes. It is merely to cite the particular phase of giving and to show how the law works in this respect. If you wish to fill your barns with corn in the autumn, in the springtime you must give seed to the ground. Without the giving of the seed, there can be no reaping of the harvest. But many people who are seeking spiritual unfoldment or the development of a consciousness of the truth will not give the required seed, thought, time, and effort, practice, to enable them to accomplish their purpose. Instead, they expect to receive knowledge and unfoldment by the turning of some trick or to some adept at the end of a 2-week course of study. It cannot be done. A man wishes to become an orator but refuses to take part in small gatherings, fearing that he will make a failure of his attempt. He has too much self-consciousness and false pride to permit himself to make a mistake, and so he continues year after year with his idea unrealized. In order to receive more, we must give what we have already. If we have a thought we feel urged to proclaim, but we refuse to give it utterance, and we continue this practice for any length of time, after a while we will have no radiant thoughts to broadcast. Even if someone speaks lightly of what we have to say, and we are ridiculed for our position, nevertheless we must give expression to our thoughts. Many are hiding their talents in a napkin, fearing derogatory remarks if they expose them to the world. Many who are living in obscurity and poverty would have places of honor had they dared to offer their gift to humanity. And as a personal example, when I was working with Equifax, in my capacity as an Operation Tech Support Specialist, I would go to the regional offices of Equifax and I would teach their people how to use the computer systems and the new software that I was installing for them. Okay, and I was working with maybe 4 or 5 people at a time. And it was a technical thing and I have no problem with that. In 1978, when I was working for Equifax, I was invited to a gathering of the tribes, esoterics, in Georgia, North Georgia mountains. And there was supposed to be an opening ceremony, and I had not intended to go. Matter of fact, I had not planned to go at all, and then my boss said, why don't you take a week off? It just so happened that was the week the conference was going on. It was a 5-day conference. And so I said, all right, that sounds good. So I let the coordinator at the conference know that I would be there, because I had been asked to do a presentation, all right? And I wasn't really expecting much in the way of people. So I got there at the conference, and the people who were going to be doing the opening ceremonies, they got delayed. They couldn't be there. And when I packed, I took 2 good suits, some casual clothes, and my spiritual accessories, books and whatnot. And I was asked to do the opening ceremony because I had everything that was necessary. And from that point on, well, the next day I addressed the conference. I expected maybe about 20 people. There was over 150 people I was talking to. I'd never talked to a crowd that large. And after about the first 5 minutes, it was just going just like that. And for the next 4 days, I was busy around the clock. People beating on my door, asking questions, wanting to know about this or that, and first one thing and another. I was exhausted by the time it was over with. But then I got invitations from several groups across the country to come and teach at their groups, and I finally settled on one, and that's history. But it was a matter of, I had not been accustomed to dealing with addressing that many people at one time. So it was a giving back to everybody what I had already received. And that's a sharing that we do. So whether, and I found out that, it doesn't make any difference if it's 5 people or 150 people. You just give of yourself, and that works out generally pretty well. Any questions so far?
I know. I mean, I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Specifically what you're talking about, it seems like a lot of people are threatened by some truth. And I'm not talking about going in and telling someone how they should live their life, because I used to do that. And I've already learned.
You didn't. No.
I've already learned that that's not, that's not constructive. But I'm talking about, gosh, if I could think of an example. But just truth, speaking truth. It seems like a lot of people recognize it in the back of their minds, and it threatens them, because if they're going to think about that, they have to look at themselves.
Right.
And it seems like a lot of people get hostile, like they don't want to be around you, and they'll even get like aggressive sort of. And I don't know. That's kind of hard to deal with.
Well, actually, no. In time, and I've encountered that a lot over 40 and some odd years. And the best thing to do in a situation like that, if there's a link and you can't make that communications link, and there's nothing you can do beyond the, except for maybe breaking it down into 1-syllable words. When you start making people have to confront themselves, thinking and looking at themselves, and they get hostile, the best thing you can do is just wish them well and not push the point.
I don't know, I just have a hard time shaking that off.
See?
And then the opposite is when people think they want to put you on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And that's just as hard. That's just as hard, because that that if they really get to, like then they'll get to know you, and they'll get to know you're just a human after all. And then sometimes they'll get just as hostile as the other people. And it's just
Yeah, it gets
one of those things that makes me not want to go out in public much.
Well, see, the thing of it is, all right, I'm a servant, all right? I've had people address me as master, and I've had people address me as my Lord, because of what I know.
Does your ego want to grab onto that?
No, I learned a long time
You
ago.
just pass that.
Yeah, and I just look them in the eye and I say, between the two of us, I am the most ignorant of us. I serve you.
But doesn't that make some people put you even higher on a pedestal?
Well, but see, the thing
You
of
know
it
what I
is,
mean?
the thing of it is, it's a matter of perspective. Because you say, I'm in service to you. I am teaching you what I know, and I expect that at some point you will know more than I know. That's my hope. So I am not I may be perceived as a master, but I'm a servant because I serve creation. And everyone that I work with or I interface with is part of creation. And,
That's speaking to their higher self.
right.
And sometimes,
And if one grabs onto that master thing as an ego thing, and most of them do, then they're not really what they say they are. Because if you haven't not mastered your own ego, all right, then you have to back up and start looking at why it still controls you, or it's so significant to you. See, and the thing to remember, ego goes to the grave. It doesn't continue on. And that's the truth of it. So if people are not comfortable with what you're saying, if they ask questions and they're not comfortable with the answers, well, you can only go so far before you have to say, I wish I could help you, but I just can't. Come back next lifetime.
How you do?
Yeah. And because I've tried to force the issue, and I learned a long time ago you just can't.
yeah.
Because that's like rubbing a sore, raw. So you just wish them well, and you just go about your business. And if people don't like what you're saying, and they ridicule you, hey, water off a duck's back. You can't let it detract from what you are and where you're at. That they don't understand is not your fault.
Yeah, that's their journey, so.
Yeah. See, because if you let that work on you, you're on a path of self-defeat. And so you wish them well, and then you go about your business.
And each person's on their own path, and maybe later on they're going to meet someone else, going to tell you almost the same thing, but because you already heard this, it'll make more sense. So,
Yeah.
Right.
I think everyone can learn something from everyone else.
Yeah, that's true.
Right, which is like in these lessons, I endeavored to make them as easy to understand as possible. And I work, like I say, with people who have, in groups who have widely divergent philosophies, but I say once you take away all the terminologies and you look at the underlying motivating forces, you're talking about the same thing. Why argue over words? Words are just words. It's the ideals and thoughts behind it that are important. So we just got to keep people from getting hung up on the wrong things.
Wrong words.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, one of the things I found, I was sitting here thinking about, the examples that they're giving about, like the man who wants to become an orator but refuses to take part in the gatherings. And then the person who's real miserly with the money. I was sitting here thinking about how there is so much fear. It's almost like the emotion that's running through it is fear, that there's so much fear in almost giving. There's like a fear element that we wrap around, either like we don't know how people are going to accept it, what we give, or we're afraid we're going to lose what we give. We're going to give it too much. We're going to care too much about somebody or give somebody too much, or they're not going to give it back. They're not going to reciprocate what we give. So it's like the examples, and I don't know if I ever really hit me how much I wonder how much I'm not being myself because I'm afraid of that fear underlying the giving.
Well, and
That
another
would be
thing
doing.
associated with that is image consciousness. We always have this fear that people are going to they're going to listen to us, and then they're going to automatically have this image in their mind of of what we really aren't. And we hold ourselves back because we have a fear of what other people will think about us. And, you know, it's like when you're talking with someone, you just be honest. If you're honest, you can't argue with honest. And if you're talking with a group of people and you're trying to make yourself, you're trying to adjust your image to everybody, you become an image to nobody. So, you know, honesty, truth in who you are and what you're saying is ultimately the best way to go. And if people don't like it, well, they'll leave. And that's fine. They're just not there at that point in time when they, you know, where they can learn something. But don't let it impact on you. That's the big thing. What is the old saying? To thine own self be true. Okay.
I'm so
Doors
sorry.
work good, Nikki.
I'm s-
No, throw it against the door.
Normally it shuts off when I hit that button and,
That's okay. That's okay. Continuing on, even if someone speaks lightly of what we have to say, and we are ridiculed for our position, nevertheless, we must give expression to our thoughts. Many are hiding their talents in a napkin, fearing derogatory remarks if they expose them to the world. Many who are living in obscurity and poverty would have places of honor had they dared to offer their gift to humanity. You know, it's like the Socratic method. You know, you have a question, you ask a question, and you know, the answer will be given to you. If you don't ask a question, we sit in a pregnant silence for a long time. Whatever you wish to receive, give of that good to your fellow man. The fact that you desire it indicates there is some small part of it in your nature, and that infinitesimal portion you must offer as your gift. Do you wish love? Then give love, not only to those who love you, but to all people everywhere, to all life, mineral, vegetable, and animal. Give largely, create within yourself a consciousness of love, and love in a large measure will fill you. You want prosperity? Then give your blessing to those who have it. If your neighbor has a fine home, do not envy him that home and accuse him of acquiring his property dishonestly. If he has employed fraudulent tactics in his dealings, the law of sowing and reaping will take care of the matter. You have nothing to do with it. You are trying to bring about desirable conditions for yourself. So keep your thoughts off the other, except to rejoice with him in his prosperity. This is for your own sake, not his. Paul understood this law when he said, "Rejoice with them that do rejoice." Give your neighbor his prosperous business, his large circle of friends, his talented children, his yacht, and everything that is worthwhile. You may not possess any of these things yourself, but you recognize them as being desirable and you wish prosperity for yourself. Therefore, recognize prosperity in your neighbor and be glad for it. This will eliminate envy, criticism, and covetousness, while opening your consciousness to the creative vibrations of love. In other words, you will tune in with infinite love and wisdom, and you will be led to demonstrate prosperity in your own way. Now, along that line, you know, if you look at somebody who has all this, you know, virtually everything that, you know, they can buy or money can buy, they're generally very miserable, because the more you have, the more you worry about people taking it from you. And so it becomes a chain, it becomes an anchor on you. I mean, it's nice to have those things. But if it becomes an ownership, possessiveness thing, it takes you from what you really should be doing. So while it's nice, you know, you did without it before, you know. But if the person has, you know, for the person who has it, well, that's good for them. That's good for them. They're the ones who have to worry about the taxes and all of that, you know, and first one thing and another. They go out and buy $1 million boat and pay $500,000 in taxes to wherever you're going to park the thing. Begin by giving what you have. If you can help a person in the understanding of his difficulties, and enable him to solve his problem, you are making a worthwhile gift. It's like saying, I won't solve your problems for you, but I will help you learn to solve your own problems. If I solve your problem for you, you learn nothing. If you learn to solve your problems, that you will keep. You can give your love and encouragement and your kindly thoughts and goodwill to everyone. If there is some work which you wanted very much to do, some talent you have longed to develop, but have delayed your training, begin at once so that you may have the joy of giving. It may be a small service, but it is yours to perform, and you must not miss your opportunity. Like Miss Nikki, she's doing the web designs and all of that, and now has become a person of import to people who know her and appreciate what she does for them, right? And you've wanted to do that, and so you've enriched your own talent and abilities by learning how to do all of this stuff.
Yeah, and all this stuff addresses a lot of the fears and stuff that I had to go through for it to even happen.
Yeah.
So.
And look how much better a person it made you, because you did it yourself.
Yeah.
And you can take a pride in that. Anybody who can do that, do their own thing for themselves, you know, it's okay to ask for help, but you don't live off that help. You let it be a guide to help you get started and keep going, you know, because we'll run into questions that we just don't know the answer to. And there's somebody that's going to be around who knows the answers. But you don't cling to them. You say, okay, thank you, and then you just plug ahead, good, bad, or however it works out. Now, Miss Nikki is almost a household word in the community in some aspects.
No.
Well, but she's taking her talent and she's offering her, you know, her talent to other people, other organizations, you know, and that's not only enhancing her skills, but she's giving back.
But that stuff, to me, well, okay, so I just wanted to say also, that was hard too, because the ego thing, for so long, I told myself that all ego was bad. And so having pride in a job well done, I would not allow. And I went to the total opposite extreme.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a healthy place to, and this stuff helps affirm it. And the other one that talked about following the stuff you want to do, that helped affirm a lot of that stuff. But to me, more rewarding than what I do is how I treat people.
Right.
And I look at other people that way too. Like I don't see people's worth in what they accomplish so much as how they treat people.
Right.
Yeah. And
Well,
I mean, it talks about.
Right. Well, and you like to be treated the same way you treat people.
Yeah.
You know, and then some people will never can quite make that or bridge that gap, and then you say, well, you know, thank you for your friendship, and you know, I have other things to do. Add to your statements of truth I give of myself, then meditate upon its meaning. So therefore we have now the contemplative thoughts of I am peaceful, I have the power to think, I am in quiet meditation, I am contacting my good now, I am powerful, I am my own authority, I am the expression of the divine, the solution of my problem is in infinite mind, I am myself, I control my emotions, all is good, I give of myself. And those are the thoughts that we should, you will be working on. Okay, any questions on any of that? Any comments? See, ego is a horrible thing to have to deal with.
Oh yeah, if I get to think that, I say, nope, stop, you know, and I try to stop myself, you know. It's hard.
Yeah, now, don't get me wrong, there are some areas where there has to be an expression of absolute ego.
Yeah.
All right, and it's not to be demeaning of anyone else, but like there are certain areas in esoterics where you have to have an ego that says, I am the master of my environment.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's a separate situation.
Yeah.
But but when you're dealing with just people though, people will, you don't have to say you have an ego thing with people who, if you're confident in what you say and what you're doing, people will recognize that in you. And they will gravitate toward you. It's not an ego thing to let them do that.
Yeah.
They're just acknowledging that, you have something that they can learn from.
Mm-hmm.
So if you maintain the attitude of we are servants or we are teachers, but we are not the masters. Because as I mentioned earlier in another lesson, of all, I am the less. What I know of the universe, of my universe, is considerably less than what others know of the universe they live in. It's like going to a dirty window and being with a group of people in a house and all the windows are blacked out and you can't see any. All you can know is what's in the house. That's the extent of everyone's knowledge. But you go over to a window and you scratch a little of the paint and you see that there is a greater world outside. You become the more ignorant of all, because while they are all confident in the world they know, you know there is a greater world of which you do not know. So, like I say, we are all servants and we are students perpetually. And though the term master and all of that sounds great, it's an ego thing that if you clutch onto, it'll just, find out you got clay feet.
So I find too that when you are teaching someone something, or a group or whatever, you'll probably, if you're awake, learn a lot yourself just by teaching it to them.
Yeah.
And that's,
And I will readily admit that over 40 odd years, there are a lot of things that I have forgotten, and not so much forgotten, but just have not used because I've used other things. And that doesn't mean that what was forgotten is less. It's just that as you study more, you get into more advanced concepts and philosophies. And it's like going to school. You start off in kindergarten, you learn to play with blocks, and you get in first grade and you start to learn your letters, and they give you paper that it's still got knot holes in it, and the lines are so far apart that you can get maybe 2 lines to a page because they don't want you to have a problem staying between the lines. Okay? Any other comments or questions? Well, then I think we should go ahead and take a break. Relax, and then we'll get started in about 15 minutes on the next lesson.